I want to talk a little bit about China. At one stage, they accounted for almost half of total revenue. What you shared with the market was that we have to think about China in its more historical perspective, where it accounted for something more like 20% of total revenue for you as a company. I'd like to get a sense from you of how much of that changing viewpoint on China is coming from weakness internally versus limits on what Chinese manufacturers can buy given export controls.
Yeah, so maybe first a step back. If you look at China, you know, we just talked about AI. AI is the very advanced semiconductor manufacturing, very advanced chips. China, for a few years now, is focusing on what we call mainstream semiconductor. So semiconductor, we used to talk about IoT, you know, all those chips that you have in all the product, making those products smarter. That's the type of chips China is basically manufacturing today. One part of the reason for that is, of course, the restriction that have been applied on EUV, as you know, which have prevented China to move to very advanced node. So the focus of China is on mainstream semiconductor. Right. The demand for that has boomed in 2021-22. As a result, the demand we had in China in 2021-22 has boomed as well. And 21-22 was the time, if you recall, where the demand was extremely high and Asml was struggling to deliver tools to everyone. Therefore, we couldn't deliver a large part of the demand in China. Backlog in China grew. 2023, the rest of the market softened. We got tools we could ship to China. Same in 2024. So the level of business we had with China in 23-24 was more of a result of the non-deliver capacity in 22-21 than anything else. And we've always explained that, you know, our quarter at 50% of the business in China, almost 50%, this was not normal. This was a peak resulting from basically a lack of delivery before.
Right.
The normal business in China is around 20-25%. Right. And that's the normal demand related to mainstream semiconductor. And I think we're going to go back to those numbers over time.
But there is something artificial about the way we think about China as a purchaser of equipment like ASML's, in the sense that many countries around the world, US principally, have been exerting export controls on the country. Are those controls going to become even more stringent? For example, China is not able to buy your most advanced machines. Is it possible that those restrictions could extend to the DUV level, which is used for more mainstream products?
Yeah, so if you go back to the root cause, or I would say the prime motivation of export control, it was to prevent China to have access to advanced technology. EUV is not in China. By not having EUV in China, we pretty much stop the ability of China to go beyond the 5, maybe 3 nanometer node. They may be able to do a few chips, and you may see some of that in the press because, of course, everyone is watching very carefully. But fundamentally, by not having EUV, we have placed China, the regulation has placed China, I would say 10 to 15 years behind when it comes to advanced technology. We always talk about China. We usually forget to mention the fact that while those restrictions have applied on China on EUV, a lot of work has been done with other players in industry, Intel, TSMC, Samsung, on the most advanced EUV technology, as we know it today, INA, etc., etc. So there's been a lot of work done every single day to continue to widen, if you want, this technology gap. And EUV is a key element to be able to do advanced technology. Right. Yeah, I think Intel has proven to the world a few years ago that without EUV, life was getting impossible. That's also true for China. So this limits part of the activity there.
Based on your interaction with the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, with the Foreign Ministry, is it your expectation that the restrictions will become even more limiting on China's ability to purchase machinery like ASML's?
Well, if you look at the geopolitical landscape, I think it's clear that the United States will continue to apply pressure on their ally for more restriction. Now the discussion we have with the Dutch Prime Minister, with, I would say, the European political leader, because at the end of the day we are a European technology champion company, right? So these are the people we have this discussion with. And the question is, what is right for the Netherlands? What is right for Europe? And as a result, what is right for ASML? So what restriction makes sense when it comes to national security, which has been the prime argument, and where does it stop, right? Because, like I say, a lot of the focus in China today is on mainstream semiconductor. And this is very different from, AI. So that's the discussion we have. I think the pressure will continue to be there because, if you look at the landscape, that's what it is. But I think that the discussion will get more sophisticated over time. The stake will become higher. And I think that a country like the Netherlands, all of Europe, where again we belong to, will also more and more start to discuss what makes sense for us.
Does it make sense for the European Union to work in such close concert with the U.S. in making it difficult for China to get access to these machines? At what stage, and do you find yourself wishing that the Dutch government and maybe the EU government would push back harder on some of the restrictions that the U.S. would like you to impose?
Well, I think, as a European citizen, right, Dutch, I would say resident, not citizen, as you know, I like to know that they do what is right for Europe and for the Netherlands. I think that's the most important things. We have always said in ASML, we don't make the law. Yeah, I'm not a politician. I don't know half of what they know, of course. And there may be good reason to restrict. And if there is a good reason to do so, and our government believes that, then we will go with it, of course. I think what's very important is to have the discussion with them so that they understand what we do, maybe understand the industry a bit better, and they are better equipped to really decide what is good, again, overall, for European countries and for the Netherlands.
Based on your interaction with your customers in China and globally, is it your perception that the motivations for export controls are truly about national security interests and regional security interests versus economic competition? In other words, how much do you think this is about keeping China from becoming economically more competitive with the rest of the world versus these are legitimate security threats?
Yeah, so Tom, I could almost turn you back the question, right? You almost have a rhetoric question, I think, in here. And what you see happening is more and more people are asking themselves this exact question. And if you look at the press, I think there is a real debate happening. That's one of the debate. Is it really about national security? We know that there is, of course, a strong economic competition between, the US, Europe, China. We see it everywhere. People question how much of that has a play in the decision. The other debate you start to see, which I think is also related, is does it help us or does it hurt us? I think there's a lot of companies in the US that start to also question, is that a good thing for us? And I think that's the key debate to have, because, like I said, I think at the end of the day, we need our governments to do the right thing for their people. And I think those debates are far more, active, far more lively than they were 2 years ago. And I think it's very good. I think it's very good because most probably this brings us to what I will call a more rational discussion and a more balanced set of decisions moving forward. So I think we can only welcome debate in such complicated issues.
Thank you.